Hey, it's Cairo. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing part 2 of the Magic the Gathering for Beginners series on creature abilities. If you haven't seen part 1, I'd recommend doing so, but it's not totally necessary. Let's jump right into it. If you like the video, please hit that thumbs up for me and consider subscribing. It means a lot to me and helps me to continue making these videos for new players. Alright, so let's jump right in. The first ability we're covering today is Equip. You may have seen some cards labeled Artifact Equipment. These cards function on the battlefield just like weapons and armor would be in real life combat. They help to buff up your creatures, increase their stats, usually give stat boosts or abilities as long as they're equipped to a creature. On most equipment cards, you'll see an equip cost near the bottom of the text box. This is the cost to attach it to a creature once it's been cast and it's on the battlefield. You can attach equipment to creatures at any time that you could cast a sorcery, so you cannot equip or unequip things during your opponent's turn unless the card specifies otherwise. It is important to remember that generally speaking, equipment will come with 2 mana costs associated with it. One when you initially cast it, which is the normal cost you see in the top right corner, and the other when you equip it to a creature. You can pay both of these in a single turn if you have the mana available. It's also important to note that unlike an enchantment aura, equipment stays on the battlefield once the creature it's attached to is destroyed. Second ability we're talking about today is Flash. Flash is a powerful but pretty simple creature ability. A creature with Flash can be played anytime that you would be able to cast an instant spell, meaning you can play it on your turn as well as your opponent's turn and during any phase of the game. A flash creature can be used after your opponent attacks you with creatures to create a scenario where you can suddenly and unexpectedly block one of those attacking creatures, catching your opponent off guard. A creature with flash can also be cast at the end of an opponent's turn, before your turn starts, leaving the creature able to immediately attack on your turn. Flash is a powerful mechanic and it's found in mostly blue and white. Our next mechanic is Haste. Normally, when you cast a creature from your hand, it's affected by summoning sickness, meaning it cannot attack or tap to use its activated abilities on the turn it's played. A creature with haste can attack and tap to use its abilities the turn that it's cast. Just like the ability name implies, haste is often used in fast, aggressive decks and can make your creatures into immediate threats the turn that they are cast. You can surprise your opponent when they weren't expecting an additional attacker. Haste is most commonly found in red. Next up, we have Hexproof. Hexproof is an interesting mechanic. It's one of the more confusing ones for new players. Hexproof prevents a creature or player from being targeted by spells or abilities controlled by an opponent. Let's say that you control this Gladecover Scout, a 1/1 creature with Hexproof, and your opponent has a murder in their hand. Hexproof prevents the opponent from being able to cast that murder to target Gladecover Scout and destroy it. This seems simple enough, but let's imagine another scenario. In this scenario, you control these grizzly bears. They don't have hexproof, so your opponent is free to cast murder targeting the grizzly bears. Let's say that they really hate grizzly bears, so they cast murder in an attempt to destroy them. What your opponent doesn't know is that you also have a snakeskin veil in your hand. At this point, your opponent casts murder, targeting the grizzly bears. Priority then goes back to you to respond before the murder resolves or takes effect. And before the spell takes effect, you can cast Snakeskin Veil, giving the grizzly bears hexproof before the murder spell takes place. Since the grizzly bears now have hexproof, the opponent cannot legally target them. Murder now has no legal targets, therefore fails to take effect and goes to the opponent's graveyard. This scenario is a little more advanced play than we really get into usually on the beginner videos, but I think it's important to touch on this because these interactions do come up fairly often in organized play. And if you have any questions on this, leave a comment below and I'll follow up with you. The last ability that we'll cover today, because Hexproof was pretty involved and this next one is pretty involved too, this ability is Indestructible. A creature or permanent with Indestructible cannot be destroyed by rules or effects. What does that mean? Well, that means that cards that say destroy cannot destroy these creatures, such as murder. It also means they can't be destroyed by taking lethal damage in combat or by spells that cause damage. These creatures also can't be destroyed by effects which say to destroy all creatures, such as Wrath of God. Seems pretty incredible, right? It's a powerful effect for sure, but there are a few caveats. At some point in your Magic journey, you'll come across cards that say to exile target creature, such as the classic white spell Swords to Plowshares. Since the creature is not being destroyed, Indestructible will not save that creature from being exiled by cards like these. Furthermore, your opponent can force you to sacrifice creatures that have Indestructible, as with Devour Flesh. If you have more than one creature in play, you can choose a different creature to sacrifice other than your creature with Indestructibility, but if you only have one creature, by default, it must be the one that you sacrifice. Creatures with Indestructible can also be returned to your hand with bounce spells such as Unsummon. Indestructible is a powerful effect. It does help in combats. It is a very good ability, but it doesn't mean that your creature is immune from all removal and can't be dealt with. That's going to be it for today. We delved into some more confusing creature abilities today, so it's normal to have some questions. If you do, leave a comment below. I will respond as best as I can. Feel free to check out part 1 of this video series on my profile for other creature abilities. Please hit that thumbs up button for me. Consider subscribing to the channel, especially because we're going to be releasing part 3 very soon. If you learned something or you enjoy the video, hit the subscribe, really helps me out, and I will see you next time for part 3. Thank you.